Dearly beloved, brothers and sisters, fellow travelers on the infinite and eternal road of eternal and infinite study, welcome to another video in the series, Is Such and Such Evil? And in this video, we shall be discussing how Christianity is in fact evil, not debating it. The question mark is really rhetorical, for Christianity is indeed evil. It's deep, dark, doo-doo evil. Christianity is so evil, if it were a thing, it would blot out the sun. It's so evil. Its evilness is so wide, you might not be able to see the edge. But I assure you, it is evil and must be destroyed along with all of the other evil things on the planet. Why is Christianity evil? You may be asking yourself. Perhaps you already know. Perhaps you have been touched by Christianity in your life. Perhaps Christianity has had some influence, some oppressive, dark influence in your life. Wherever you are, I expect that is the case, for Christianity as a religion is pervasive and influential. Popular, even. Could you believe it? This evil, retarded mumbo-jumbo is actually popular. Now, you don't need to be a student of the Bible to figure out that Christianity is evil. But if you have read the Bible, the New Testament, I suppose we should start with a kind of short, potted history of Christianity. So, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a religion called Judaism, and the people who practiced it were called Jewish. And they believed, amongst other things, that they were God's chosen people, and that there was in fact only one God, and that God had chosen them to be their people. And the Romans thought this was such a jolly jape and such a good idea, they decided that they would take on monotheism for themselves, for their own hideous empire purposes. And those of you familiar with history will no doubt have heard that for a while the Romans were throwing Christians to the lions and stuff like that, which may or may not be true, but it didn't take the Romans long to realize what a great business opportunity Christianity could be, or monotheism. Now, they couldn't declare themselves to be Jews because they weren't Jewish and they hadn't had bits chopped off their dick. So they decided to create the idea of another prophet of Judaism, another Abrahamic prophet, who they called Jesus. And they cooked up a story that Jesus had existed and said that he'd come to earth on behalf of God to bring a new gospel, the New Testament, if you like, to the people of earth on behalf of the Roman Empire. I mean God. And that's what we call Christianity. The New Testament is the Christian Bible. The Old Testament is a big, fat, old book. The New Testament might as well be a brochure on an airline. It's so thin. I mean, the Romans, they didn't want to waste too much ink knocking up the religion of Christianity. So the New Testament is fairly thin, and it mostly revolves around Jesus telling people that they're sinners from the moment they're born, but he forgives them. It's okay. You're a sinner, you're evil, but I forgive you. Well, how fucking magnanimous of you, Jesus. You're the cunt who called me evil in the first fucking place, by the way. I wasn't evil till you said I was evil. The New Testament uses the word evil 163 times to describe people like you who are not Christian. And that is why Christianity is evil. According to Christianity, once you have conceived, once a new human being is conceived in the womb, it is evil. It's a sinner. And its life should be spent seeking redemption and repenting for its sins forevermore and begging Jesus his dad and the Holy Spirit, etc., for forgiveness, so that they can be redeemed by Jesus. I mean, the gobsmacking ambition of Jesus in this respect. You've got to admire it. On the other hand, I also hate it. And Christianity is evil, retarded, hideous, muck. And it must be destroyed, along with all of the other evil religions on earth. And if you'd like to get in touch and join in with this show, the telephone number's in the title. If you would like to let us know how Jesus touched you in your life, then do feel free to join in and phone us while we discuss the evils of Christianity. And now, the idea that every human being ever conceived is immediately evil and a sinner ought to be bad enough. But there's more. That's not the only reason that Christianity is evil. Christianity is evil because it compels you to obey God. If it weren't bad enough that God believes you are evil from the moment you're conceived, God also wants you to obey him. Because he's a guy, apparently, according to the story the Romans cooked up. And Christians who believe this stuff should be ashamed of themselves, since there is plenty of good historical evidence of the following. Jesus never existed. The Romans wrote the Bible for their own purposes, to enable them to take over the practice of religion in the empire that they had militarily conquered, and turn it into a money-making venture, i.e. to confiscate the assets of the other religions and turn all religious practice in their empire into a money-going concern for them. And if that's not evil enough, take a look around at the world the Christians have brought to us. The Catholic Church, by the way, all those people who think they're not Catholic, all the Christians who think they're something else, Pentecostal, Seventh-day Adventists, whatever. You're not. You're all Catholics. I don't care what particular flavor of lollipop you think you're licking, but if you subscribe to the Bible and the New Testament, you're Christian, and the current, if you like, head office of Christianity on earth is the Vatican, the Pope, and Catholicism. You're all Catholics. Indeed, Protestants are Catholic as well. They just protest about being Catholic or something like that. So, is Christianity evil? Oh yes, lordy lordy, it's deep dark evil. It's evil because it consigns every single human being from the moment of conception throughout their entire life until the moment of their death as a sinner. Oh, we have a caller. Let's see. Who's on the line?
My name is Alistair. How are you doing?
I'm good, Alistair. How are you doing?
I'm here to help you with your boredom and your journey, mate.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Have you ever been touched by Jesus?
Now we have to get back to your original comment. Is Christianity evil, right? Before we go into that aspect of it. And I agree that the church and the Bible can be evil, but Christianity in its original form is actually a force for good.
Well, in what sense are you defining good? Remembering that they define all infants as sinners.
Well, that's the church.
Okay, but the church and the Bible and the practice of Christianity as laid out by them is surely what Christians are saying they are.
But that's not what happened at the beginning. In the beginning, it took 3 centuries for them to figure that out and kind of get organised. In the 4th century, one of the synods where they created the creeds and all that kind of stuff, and the church took supremacy over the Roman Empire. There was a schism with the Eastern Bloc where they said on certain words where they split the whole thing into 2, but it became the Orthodox and the Catholic. But in the beginning, there was no books. There was no New Testament. There was only people hanging out with people saying, hey, guess what? Check this out. And it was just being touched in inverted commas by this guy, and it changed people's lives.
Okay, I'll just have to take issue with the idea that Jesus existed. I do know, as a, I know that historically Christians predate the Roman writing of the New Testament and takeover. I understand where you're coming from there. The crossroads at the Middle East was a place where people bought the idea of spirituality from the Far East, the idea of there being one God who loves you and everything's okay. I get that. But Jesus as a figure is surely the Ronald McDonald of the corporation. He's more a sort of brand conglomerate of ideas than an actual person.
I've had that discussion with quite a few people. I'm not trying to defend it or support this. I'm not trying to support or defend it or counteract it. It's what the concept of Jesus. There's a pretty good summary by a writer looking at the House of Hippo and how the Romans actually used that Christ figure to create Christianity and use it as a function of the Roman state. That's a really interesting read. But personally, there's just as much evidence for his existence as there is against his existence. In the same way, there's just as much evidence for the evidence of Plato and his existence as historical record.
I would have to. I have to say that I can't form a great deal of sympathy for that, having argued with Christians for many years about the fraudulent historian Josephus being really the only text that in any way supports his existence as a person. Now, at that time in the Roman Empire, there were at least 20 to 30 operating professional historians knocking out histories all over the place, and none of them mentioned Jesus, which is odd to say the least.
But to the historical accuracy, to kind of ignore the fact that that the name Jesus has had such a powerful influence over the world, we'd have to really consider the fact that, perhaps we should kind of rethink this, rather than kind of looking for historical accuracy on this area. At that point, historical accuracy depends on if it's written or not. And the Romans wouldn't have had any real interest in what they would class as a revolutionary in Palestine doing his thing.
Okay, I am philosophically prepared to engage with the idea that a unicorn that you imagine is possibly still a unicorn, and therefore, since many people have imagined Jesus, that he might as well exist in some form or other. So that brings me, however, to the next question. Like, where you said Jesus was a force for good.
Initially.
In a personal sense, perhaps for some people, in the sense that the idea of a pantheon of gods is very entertaining, that you could go down to various different temples and dance with different altar ladies. So, the idea of monotheism came along, and it kind of modernized the whole concept of religion for the people of that time. But that in and of itself doesn't make it good. I mean, to be good, Jesus and Christianity would have to do something for people that was good, that enhanced their life, that gave them more chance of survival and more chance of advantage in life. And I mean, if you've ever read The God Delusion,
yes,
right? There's a one paragraph in that where I think he concedes, at the very least, you could say, if you're born into a community that's, really big on God and you don't go along with it, that would be difficult. So the advantage to believing, right? The only advantage to believing...
Dawkins is a bit of a questionable person in my head. Have you ever read The Dawkins Delusion?
No, I haven't, but that's an intriguing title.
It's a counter to The God Delusion.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. But I wouldn't. I would read it with a jaundiced eye, because I don't believe in any divinity at all, none whatsoever.
Right.
And therefore, if Jesus, even the imagined unicorn of Jesus, espouses a divine being, then he's an evil moron, and I'd have to destroy him because he's espousing stupid stuff.
I used to think the same way. I did. I thought Christianity was the biggest load of codswallop. I kind of grew up in Belfast Light in the 70s and in the 80s until I get so sick and tired of Glasgow. I said, I need to get out of this godforsaken place. And I was immersed in the whole Catholic Protestant kind of insanity that's still rife through Glasgow.
Indeed.
And it wasn't until one day that a friend of mine said, "Have you ever prayed to God?" And I busted laughing. I said, "There's just no way I'm ever. What God? Who's God? Which God?" And but then to placate him, actually, I just said, "You know what? All right, and I'll do it for whatever, you know." And I recited these half a dozen words, and I looked at him and I said, "Is that it?" He said, "That's it." And then I stood up. When I stood up, what felt like a weight fell off my shoulders. I felt it because I had a joint in my pocket at the time. And I felt like 15 feet above myself.
Maybe you dropped the joint, and that was the weight that lifted off your shoulders.
Black. It's like, no, it was pretty physical. But at that point, I just seemed to have a kind of an immersion in something, and I still don't know what it was to this day. But I felt an unconditional love towards everything and everybody.
Yeah, man, I had that. I got that off 6 mushrooms once.
6? What a fly guy got satisfied.
Well, I'm a cheap night out. It doesn't take much to get me going. I guess my point there is that your personal experiences within your own consciousness are they're not necessarily transmitted to you from outside by a divine being or anything else, and they're also not necessarily transmissible, i.e. that they don't necessarily translate in a way that you can that other people can experience them also just by mumbling the mantra or jumbling the hocus pocus. You know,
well, that's the thing. This is what I think happened in the early pastorates of the church. Is that that's exactly what did happen, was the mumbling and rambling and mumbo jumbo. By reciting this, it was just a kind of a phrase of words, and people had a direct experience. This is about, I can understand where you're coming from, of this inverted commas supernatural. And for me, it was more an immersion into a deeper reality. And the fact that what I felt at that point was an interconnected, and I understand where you come from with the mushrooms. It was an interconnection between me and everything else around, a complete and immersion and interconnection with the symbiotic relationship between myself and everything within nature.
We are all one.
Yes, but only if you understand what that means. Not with the new age aspects of that kind of stuff, or the kind of one aspect of the new world order. But it was just this is in terms of being human, in terms of humanity having a spiritual nature. Then yes, I'd agree with you on that, but you disagree with me on that point anyway.
Well, you mentioned disagreement, and so perhaps we could frame the discussion along those lines.
Okay.
Are you declaring that you are Christian, or at least a divine believer in some kind of God?
Now I would say I'm a believer in some kind of God. Yes.
Okay, then. So
how that manifests itself, though, is completely different from how it's manifested elsewhere.
Okay, well, that from my point of view, that is divinity, and therefore, from the astronomer's point of view, you are, if you like, on the other side of our battle lines. Philosophically speaking, we, the astronomers, are taking up arms against divinity. That is our position. that there is a
Well,
battle.
no, you see the position of science, and that's just a primary assumption of spirit, and it's a spiritual assumption within the universe, saying that there is no God.
Oh no, I'm not saying that there is. Well, just to be clear, there's no proof. See if you could devise an experiment and show everybody with a persistent, repeatable method of experimentation that revealed a conclusion which was absolute and incontrovertible. I, as a person who am rational...
So that's apples and oranges.
No.
You're asking science is a philosophical stance. What I'm discussing is not a philosophical stance, it's a spiritual stance.
Well, I would have to clear up the semantics involved here.
Yeah, we'd have to do that.
I don't think I'm proposing anything particularly scientific when I ask that if there was a God in reality, that it could be made apparent. It could be revealed by some method or process. But if that's not the case, then it's supernatural and it's mumbo jumbo.
No, I get it. It's exactly how I used to think, and I think it takes something like an immersion to shift it to a mental perspective on this. Because I had to go and discuss with myself okay, ontologically, how do I view reality and how do I act within it, and then what methodology am I going to use to interact with it, and how am I going to then what can I predict and control it? And this is nothing about prediction or control. It's actually rather kind of being linear. It's more like a cyclical way of thinking about reality and how reality functions. And this is where it gets awkward. This is where the debate this is where the discussion gets awkward. This is where Dawkins again kind of relied on his own rationality a bit too much for my thinking. And when a spiritual philosopher came in and discussed it with him under the Dawkins delusion, and they actually had a physical meeting where they discussed each other's position on this. It's a really interesting debate. It's actually on YouTube, and they agreed. What they ended up doing was agreeing to disagree, because their view of reality was fundamentally different from each other.
Well, I would like to, just before we go any further, I should like to cleave off the idea that spirituality is somehow the domain of divinity, that somehow divinity has kidnapped spirituality, and that if you feel spiritual or if you have spiritual experiences, they must somehow relate to a divine being or something like that.
Okay.
Spirituality is available to astronomers. Spirituality is available to anybody. Everybody is, in fact, all life in the universe is having a spiritual experience. In my view, I am a believer in anima mundi, that the entire cosmos is living and lives.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
And therefore, spirituality is not a hostage of divinity. And
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
neither is spirituality. Your experience of a spiritual nature is not evidence of divinity.
Well,
You can feel good about being alive and part of a whole and connected living cosmos that you feel wonderful about, without it having to have had been created by a guy with sandals and a beard.
Well, no, well that concept that idea is just going to get done immediately. This whole idea of the divinity being some white dude with a beard in the sky.
Well,
that aspect of
any entity of a sort of individual nature, a sort of an agency, or an actor that is divinity. Divinity, if in the natural world, I believe, are the forces of nature. It's the forces of nature which have created us, the cosmos, the world around us. and they're not a single entity. They're an ongoing, foaming, changing, infinitely variable set of events caused by the fundamental forces of nature.
That's where I'd have to disagree with you. That if we're at the random processes of nature that really exist and took quite randomly, that there is a spirit within nature which pulls us towards itself as human beings.
I think I know.
Let me finish your point.
I know. Yeah.
That we're drawn to it. We're naturally drawn to what is good. We can then start discussing how the Greeks would discuss philosophy and what is good, what is the nature of good. How do you define good? Is it a good or is it good? Is it with capital letters or with small letters? But there's within humanity there's this innate we get drawn towards the good. And at the same time, there also exists things like great capacity for evil. And we have to understand the distinction between them both. How do we define what is good for humanity and what is evil for humanity? And this is where I'd agree with you that the church has been inherently evil for humanity over its lifespan. The doctrine of discovery, for instance, has been going on there for 500 years, and it's caused so much trouble in the new world, in inverted commas, that is unbelievable.
Okay, right. Just so as you have begun to sort of define good and evil, I should ask you, therefore, to point out to me any absolute good and evil in the cosmos at all. There's none. There's no such thing as good and evil. The only thing that's good and evil in the world is what you think is good and evil. It's an aesthetic. It's an aesthetic. You making aesthetic.
Hold on, Dick. Your question was, is Christianity evil?
Yes, that's right.
So you opened the debate.
Yes, but you kind of didn't let me finish there. I'm saying that the idea of good and evil is an aesthetic, not ethic and moral, but aesthetic. And therefore, if I don't like it, it's evil, and if I like it, it's good, and that's all there is to it. And I don't like Christianity, therefore it's evil. And there is no such.
That's basic. That's just basic.
Oh well, it's fundamental. All your morality is.
You're discussing matters of taste at this point.
Indeed, absolutely. I don't like it, bad. I like it, good.
So I like strawberry ice cream, you like chocolate ice cream, so
yeah.
Like strawberry ice cream is evil.
Come
on.
You know, you're painting with a big brush there, because I don't.
We're discussing taste, matters of taste.
Aesthetics encompass not only your taste in ice cream, but also your taste in morality. So yes, we are discussing taste, because if you're familiar with, let's say, the teachings of Zen, right? So Zen would have you believe that that there is no such thing as a perfect anything. Yeah, it's just your perception. It's you. What you like is not just what you like. You have to get rid of the word just. Like you were trying to, if you like, diminish the idea of taste, as if, oh, it's just what you like, just because you like it. What you like, what you have chosen in your own conscience for yourself to be good, is not just anything. It's your absolute right and your absolute. It's you who is creating the world that you live in, right and wrong. And it is not for religion to top down tell you what's good and evil. It's for you personally. It's you who want to know what is good and evil, and you must decide for yourself, and nobody else can make that decision for you. And what I think is evil is for me to decide.
Okay, let me put it this way. When I talk about taste, I'm talking about in terms of philosophical flavors and taste.
as opposed to what is strong knowledge and weak knowledge in matters of taste. When it comes to the Zen aspect of it, is what is the function of Zen? What is it that they're trying to attain?
Well, I'm not a Zen or a Buddhist, so I wouldn't know. But I think I remember you saying something else there about humans gravitating to good, and somehow the universe having some kind of the cosmos having some kind of desire or preference for good over evil, and
Humanity does.
or humanity does. I should like to ask you if aliens arrive in orbit around planet Earth and begin slaughtering us, all of us humans on Earth, they begin slaughtering us in a wholesale fashion, in a painful and degrading way, and sucking our brains out and anally probing us.
How much have you smoked today?
Is that
Yes, okay, I'll take the premise. All right, go on.
is that evil?
I would say yes.
Oh, why? Don't they have a right to live?
We're not talking about their right to live here. They're talking about do they have a right to suck out our brains and anally probe us?
Well, that's what they do for a living. That's
Do you know that?
that's their job.
That's different ways of
That's what they're brain eating, anal probing cosmic plumbers, and they've come to Earth to get that job done, and it's not it's
already here.
it's surely not for us to call them evil just because we don't like it.
Well, that's what they're doing, but they don't have to be aliens to be anal probing you and sucking your brains out. That happens every day on television.
Indeed. So I don't think that somebody doing their will is evil. I think if the Russians want to annex Crimea and they can, they can. I may not like it, or I may like it. There's nothing absolute about the annexation of Crimea or the sucking of brains out in nature. It's
Well,
just,
it depends on if what we're talking about now is the political global chessboard.
well,
And why they're doing it, and who's blowing the strings behind it.
I'm saying that the decision as to what is good and evil is an individual conscience, not a universal or divine matter of religious belief.
So what do you define as good then?
Whatever I like.
But that's a matter of taste.
No. I thought we'd discussed
No,
that
you like
already.
something.
It's,
No, I'm not
it's
trying- I'm
aesthetics.
serious about this.
It's aesthetics.
There's the four levels of kind of strong knowledge, like physics, first of all, strong knowledge like physics, mathematics, all the kind of the very strong, the stuff that makes planes fly. Then there's weak knowledge, which is your ologies. Then there's strong opinion, which is where your religions lie. And then there's weak opinion, which is matters of taste and what I like. And we're discussing weak opinion rather than strong opinion.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
No.
No.
I think we're getting confused between weak knowledge and weak opinion and strong opinion.
Let me ask you a little thought experiment.
Okay.
There's a train coming down the tracks. All right?
Right.
You're standing at the points on the track, right?
Right.
And your family is on the tracks, yeah?
No, I'm standing on the tracks. Don't add to it.
No, you're standing by the
Oh, my
points.
family's on the tracks now too. Okay.
Your family's on the tracks, and you're standing next to the points that divert the train onto another track. Yeah?
Oh boy. Okay.
So in order to save your family, you have to divert the train onto the other tracks. Yeah? All right, what are you going to do?
Does the train exist?
Yeah, this is a thought experiment, obviously.
Okay, I would divert the train onto the other tracks.
Oh, okay. How many
The other
people...
track leads to?
Does it matter?
No, because that decision is going to have to be made by someone else.
Does it matter
Well,
what's on the other track to you?
At that moment in time, no.
So, what you've done there is you've made a decision based on what you like, not on morality. Oh, yeah? You'd like your family to live.
I would love my family to live.
There you go. So that's an aesthetic choice. That's your preference. You would prefer your family to live.
Your point being?
So you haven't made a moral decision. You don't care what's on the other track.
That's, I haven't made a... No,
You don't care who's on that other track.
It's not as binary as that.
Fuck those people on the other track.
Because they're gonna get their own points on the track.
No, you can sacrifice your family, your children, your wife, whatever, and the dog, in order to be good, since humanity is allegedly good, or you can kill those other fuckers. Man, I'm killing those other fuckers all day long. Fuck those other fuckers. Because
you've added a new dimension to it.
I prefer, like you, I prefer my family to live. And that's why morality is an aesthetic. It's about preference. It's not absolute at all. They're just personal choices. You're just making a personal choice based on your preference.
That's a strong opinion.
I would say it's more just a logical point of fact.
Well, we're discussing strong opinions here.
Well, no, you are.
Knowledge.
I'm not framing anything as strong or weak at all. I'm saying that you would
thinking it is.
that what you prefer.
Hold on, Nick. Because matters of taste,
Preference.
we're discussing.
Preference.
Well, that's how taste and preference. The preference is when you get back into strong opinion.
I mean,
I prefer Celtic. You prefer Rangers. Big deal.
I prefer my family to live.
That's a stronger argument.
Well, it's still just a preference.
Well, let's get back to Christianity.
Okay, well, hang on, because I have another point to raise with you about the
Sure,
cosmos. Okay, so let me just describe your life that takes place,
Okay,
right?
take us back.
Your entire life takes place between your ears. Yeah, everything that you experience as reality, everything you think that is reality, is basically just a collection of signals processed through your senses in a kind of bioelectric soup.
You're stuck in the head again.
Okay, so whatever it is you think you're experiencing, it is taking place inside a human brain.
Wait, okay, let's discuss that. If I'm
Okay.
having a symbiotic relationship with the earth, with everything around me.
Well, you think you are.
Wait, hold on, before you shoot me down. I don't think that everything that exists within between my two ears.
Oh no! I'm not saying the world exists between your ears.
I'm a walking brain.
You need a pretty big head.
I've got a flesh suit to protect those nerve endings, and my brain itself is having inputs from multiple areas at the same time.
You'd need a pretty big head for the world to be actually in your head.
How we can manage to actually fit all these narratives in this tiny head is for me actually.
I'm agreeing with you on that. The world is not inside your head.
No.
Your experience
head.
of the world is inside your head. And now, let's just move that discussion on a little. Imagine, if you will, here's another thought experiment for you. That there is a giant big nebula out there in space of such complexity and electrical activity that consciousness, exactly the same as yours, manages to exist within it. Yeah?
Okay.
And that nebula, that vast, cosmically speaking, cloud of intelligent, aware and conscious gas starts to think, man, this is real dull. I think I'll go and create some people on that planet over there. How do you know you're not the plaything of the electric soup of the Crab Nebula?
That version of creation is actually how the Hindus actually think.
I know.
So,
I'm aware of the Hindu pantheon and of the timeline of.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are you trying to say here?
That you're just the plaything of the Crab Nebula. That the forces of nature, which are impersonal and they are
So it's the great dance between life and death, and we're just in between it. And
the forces of nature.
Incarnations.
Let me finish the sentence. The forces of nature have brought into existence consciousness and intelligence with great power in the cosmos, in the Crab Nebula, and you're just their toy.
It's entirely possible.
Indeed it is. And we wouldn't know if it wasn't the case, or if it was, because we have a very limited view.
But then we have to go back to the Hindu conception of it is that we have to, forgive me for using these words, that we all go back to the Godhead, we go back to the original dream. And that's the function of us being down here on Earth and all these yugas, cycles and all that kind of stuff, until we reincarnate over millennia into perfection and get back into the original dream. Now, that to me sounds like a curse.
Well, I mean, you have
back down here multiple times and
you'll
figure it all out again.
I think you'll have to we'll have to depart from the Hindus' mumbo jumbo, which I don't buy either. I'm not buying their mumbo jumbo just because I'm painting that picture.
It's an extra experiment.
I am simply bringing to your attention that there's no way you can tell the difference between being a child of God and the plaything of the Crab Nebula.
This really gets back to that kind of that your preferences, right? I choose to believe that that now that I'm here on Earth, I can choose to do either one or two things: do good stuff or not do good stuff.
Those are your preferences.
It's to do good. It's to try and do good.
But that's a choice you're making. It's not a compulsion by the Crab Nebula's not making you do that.
But it's almost a compulsion after the experience I had. I feel almost compelled to do it. You go screw people around, and it's natural moral law. It's and good means to be good, to become a good human, a good person. And it's very much similar to how the Greek philosophers would think in terms of stoicism. Being stoic about the whole process is they just just don't do shit to other people. And
well, I might agree with you. The principles of the astronomers are in no particular order. To be an astronomer, you must be honest. You must be non-violent.
Yes.
You must look after yourself, not be a burden on others. And most importantly, the fourth principle, you and your conscience are the arbiter of good and bad. Nobody else.
That says more like libertarians than it does astronomers.
Well, the lexicon of any particular belief system is just the wallpaper of the space that you find yourself in. Is it Alistair?
Yeah.
Alistair, my driving experience is becoming more complicated, and I'm going to have to go because I'm approaching some traffic, and I'm going to have to concentrate. So it's been very entertaining. Thank you for phoning in. I genuinely, thoroughly enjoy these kinds of conversation, and I hope everybody who's been listening did as well. It gives me no great pleasure to say that you are evil if you're a Christian and you've been touched by Jesus. And if you have been touched by Jesus, I'm sorry for you. We're trying to do something about that.
It's metaphorical, Deep.
Well, that's what Jimmy Savile said.
Oh, don't go there, you beast.
All right. I'm coming up on a roundabout here.
Mate, listen, look after yourself. Chat to you later.
Cheers, James. Alistair.
Bye.
Taraman. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, and for everybody else tuning in online, this video, Is Christianity Evil?, will conclude there. We may be the playthings of the Crab Nebula. We just don't know. But until we find out otherwise, with some clever devised experiment, I maintain that Christianity is evil. Jesus never existed. He's the Ronald McDonald of the Roman Empire, and we, the astronomers, will destroy them, wipe them from the face of the earth, cleanse this planet of evil for ourselves, for our own good, and for our alien friends who may soon join us. Okay, stay tuned, because later on we'll be dealing with the religion Islam, and you can be sure it will probably turn out to be evil as well. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.